Sampling. Sampling is where you figure out how to randomize. We've done a random number generator. Now let's actually go into the real world and take real samples from people. Some review over definition. Population. That's the total set of observations that can be made. So if I want to sample the United States, that's everybody in the United States. Texas, everybody in Texas. If I want to do people in general, we're talking about the world. Sample is a smaller group, usually randomly selected from the population. So obviously I can't sample everybody in America or everybody in Texas. I got to take a sample size of that. Sample survey is usually surveys you sent out to random people. There are different types of random sampling. Simple random sample, SSR. So that's the standard we want to go at, which is basically it's true randomness. You have a whole group of people, everybody in America, and you just social security numbers, bam, 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 grab them. Stratified random sampling is we take our group, we take our population, turn it into groups. Like say our population was a school, we change our school into juniors, seniors, sophomores, freshmen, and then take samples from each of those groups and then bring them together. That's stratified random sampling. Cluster, splitting the population into representative clusters, then selecting one or a few clusters at random. So again, it would be the school, we're in classrooms, we're in clusters, right? It's kind of not random because you're selecting to be in this class, but let's just bear with me. And then they're randomly selected classes. Ooh, I want class C3114. Bam, that's cluster. And then systematic. You have the whole population, you put them all out in order, and you say, I want to start at 12 and then go every 7 people. Or in this case, I want to start at 2 and go every other person. And you're keeping that, it's fixed. You're not going to change it. That's systematic. So here's a bigger picture of the types. And remember, we're doing this to eliminate bias. That's what we're mostly going to talk about today. This bias. You'll see, the question you're probably going to ask is, well, how can you ever eliminate bias? Well, you probably can't. Our goal is to try to, So you probably can't eliminate bias. Your goal is to try to just minimize it as much as possible. So how can sampling go wrong? Here are some common mistakes. Mistake number 1, sample volunteers. So you're taking volunteers. When a large group of individuals is invited to respond, and those who choose to respond are counted, the sample is not representative. So say, I want to take a sample, since it's related, of who's going to vote for the president. People, come on. I need volunteers. Tell me who you're going to vote for. Well, what if the Democrats are very highly motivated and you get mostly Democrats? That's not going to be representative, is it? So even though every individual in the population may be offered the chance to respond, this gives you what's called the voluntary response survey bias. It invalidates the survey. So try not to ask for volunteers. Mistake number 2 is sample conveniently. Include individuals who are convenient for us to sample. Examples, internet. I just want to take samples of the internet because it's easy. I type in a Google form, bam, and I'm done. Shopping malls. Sometimes even selecting participants who look easy to interview. So sample conveniently. So it was lunch yesterday. The teacher was getting her master's, her dissertation. She says, he was just asking teachers, hey, I'm going to need you to ask you to fill out these surveys when the time comes. Well, that's volunteers and it's convenience, right? Probably not going to get good data from just asking your buddies or your family members. Mistake number 3, using a bad sampling frame. An SRS from an incomplete sampling frame introduces bias because the individuals included may differ from the ones not in the frame. So I want to say, you use this bias. People on the internet, right? I just want to take, because it's easy for me to grab people from the internet. Well, you also get a bad frame because what about the people not on the internet? What do they like to say? What are their opinions? Also include people in prison, homeless people, students, long-term travelers are likely to be missed. So again, say if they went out and called people who randomly, actually that goes into mistake number 4. Undercoverage. Some portion of the population is not sampled at all or has a smaller representation in the sample than it has in the population. For example, at-home telephone surveys. They call you up. Hey, just let us know who you're going to vote for. That way they can get a good read on what the election is going to come out to be. That occurs usually during dinner time and may miss those that eat out. So that would be undercoverage. You get only people that just hang out at home. That will also be a bad sample frame. You're missing those people that like to go out a lot. Maybe those people are pro-Democrats. Maybe the people that go out a lot are Republicans. I don't know. So here are 4 common mistakes when you're picking a sample. Non-response bias. No survey succeeds in getting responses from everybody. The problem is that those who don't respond may differ from those who do. So you'll have to watch out for those. Why is that person not responding? Maybe Republicans are more likely to just say, I don't got time for that. And Democrats are more motivated this year, and they're like, I definitely want to give my opinion. I don't know. That would be a non-response bias. Response bias. Anything in the survey designed that influence the responses. Include the tendency of respondents to tailor their responses to try to please the interviewer. That should speak for itself. You should always try to word your questions in your surveys appropriately and not try to get the response you want. Does that make sense? So, let's look at a couple examples here. A website asks their question of the day to which visitors to the site were invited to respond. So, you can already see that there's a bias going on here. Websites. Do you ever use emoticons when you type online? Of the 8,000 people, 26% said they did not use emoticons. What's the sample and mistake made here? Which of these 4 mistakes? Was it a sample of volunteers? Did they make this mistake? Did they make that common mistake? Did they only include people who responded in this survey? I would say so. What about mistake number 2? Sample conveniently. Did they make that mistake here? Should I be telling jokes or something right now? Was it convenient for them to ask people on the website rather than going out and asking people randomly or telephone random numbers? Yes. Yeah. So they made that mistake. It was they used a convenient bias. Using a band sample frame. So again, what did they miss? What did they miss out on? The people who don't use the internet, or what about people? Well, this be typing online, so not typing on phones. So yeah, obviously, actually I think that would be fine because you're only asking what? Do you ever use money when you're online? So you really don't care about the people who aren't online because they won't be doing it anyway. And what was the other one? Undercoverage. Do you think they missed anything? Yeah, I don't think there was too much undercoverage. At least not from just the information we're given. So how much confidence would you place in using 26% as an estimate of the fraction of people who use emoticons? Based on all the bias and mistakes we saw, do you have confidence? No. So no, I don't have confidence in these results. The big one would be the convenient sampling. They only asked, where did they send out this survey? Was it through like some kind of forum that only these people were on? So, questions you should be asking. Next, a U.S. consumer magazine asked all adult subscribers whether they had used herbal medication treatments, and if so, whether they had benefit from them. For almost all of the treatments, approximately 22% of those respondents reported cures or substantial improvement in their condition. So what is the population? Adult, okay. It doesn't exactly state, but we can assume it's U.S. adults, right? What is the population parameter of interest? So now they're trying to get a smaller frame. What are they interested in? Subscribers. Yeah, adult subscribers. Oops. And what is the sample frame? Let's see. Okay, sorry, you got that. The sample framing is adult subscribers. So we're taking from these people. The population parameter of interest, what do we want to know? We want to know what? Oops. So population, U.S. adults. What do we want to know about these adults? Our interest. We want to know what?
What do they use?
What do they use and what do they benefit from them? And then the sample frame is the adult subscribers. We're just grabbing from those people. What is the sample for this study? How do we collect our data? How do you think they collected the data? They did what? A survey, yeah. They asked. Let's see, does it go into detail with common survey? So yeah, let's see, it really doesn't say if they were volunteered or not, but I would assume a survey is a volunteer response. What is the sampling method? Is it random? So, where did they get their sampling from? What was the sampling method? So they sent out surveys to everybody, all their subscribers. What was their method? No, it wasn't random. They got some kind of data. How did they get that data? You send out a survey, and you're hoping for what? Response. So our sampling method was getting some kind of response. People responded. So would you say that's random, get a response back? No, because it's only based on the responses you got, right? You were just throwing things out there and hoping for the best. And now, what type of bias do you see in this sample? Okay, non-response, so we have kind of like an undercoverage going on. What about the people who aren't subscribers? What else? Should I go back to the mistakes? Any of these mistakes apply? What about number 1? Did they create a voluntary response survey bias? Yeah. So that only the people that were subscribers were offered the chance to respond, and they only got response back from people who responded. So it also makes this mistake, don't it? Convenience. They didn't go out and find anybody else, because what they did is they already had their mailing address, and so they are only used people that were already on their list. So population unknown, probably adults in the country. Population parameter of interest, what are we interested in knowing? Is the population who have used and benefit from herbal medication. What is the sample framing? So it's all subscribers from the consumer magazine. What is the sample of the study? That's people who responded. What is the sample method? It's a voluntary response sample. It's not random. And what type of bias is evident in this sample? Well, they had that response bias. Subscribers choose to participate under coverage. What about non-subscribers? And yep. So, just a little quick thing about bias. Something to definitely watch out for. Again, you should probably be asking, well, is it even possible to eliminate bias? The answer is probably no. We just want to minimize it as much as possible.